Welcome to the Truth Behind Recycling series. We've all been told that recycling is the answer, but in reality, it is far messier. In this series, we're going to peel back the layers of how recycling really works and where it doesn't. You'll uncover some of the limits of material like plastic, glass, metal, and paper, and how contamination and the global market forces shape what actually gets recycled. You'll explore some dirty little secrets, such as the hidden cost in energy, water, and transport, and the uncomfortable truths about downcycling. And finally, you'll confront the bigger picture, some of the myths and misinformation, and the illusions that corporations and consumers cling to. And by the end, you'll be seeing recycling for what it really is, not a silver bullet, but one imperfect tool in a much bigger fight for sustainability. So let's get started with Module 1, how recycling works and doesn't. How recycling works and doesn't. Truth Behind Recycling Series Module 1. Recycling has been sold to us as a magic eraser of our waste problems. Toss it in the blue bin, feel good, and get on with your day. But the truth is it's complex and often flawed system that works brilliantly for some materials, barely works for others, and sometimes doesn't work at all. Let's explore. Why does this matter? Why is it important that you, specifically you, understand this stuff? First, let's start with the environmental impacts. Recycling isn't just about keeping your bin from overflowing. It's about protecting the ecosystems that keep us alive. When recyclable material ends up in landfills or in the environment, they leak toxins, choke wildlife, and contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. By understanding what actually gets recycled, we can target our efforts where they have the biggest ecological payoff. So now for consumer influence. Every purchase is a tiny vote for the kind of world you want to live in. When we know which materials are truly recyclable and which ones are landfill bound, we can shift our buying habits towards products and companies that support a circular economy. That collective pressure can nudge entire industries to change their packaging, sourcing, and waste practices. Waste as resources. Your garbage might be raw material for someone else's manufacturing process. Aluminum cans, for example, can be back on a store shelf in as little as 60 days. But if we contaminate or missort our materials, that resource stream breaks down, and what could have been reused becomes just another expensive pile of waste. Personal empowerment. Knowledge is power, but in this case, it's also action. When you understand the recycling system's strengths and weaknesses, you can make informed choices every day, from what you buy to how you dispose of it, to how you talk about waste with your community. And finally, the mental load. We've been sold the idea that recycle and you've done your part, but that's only part of the truth. Knowing the real story clears up confusion, reduces eco-guilt, and frees up mental space to focus on actions that actually move the needle, both for your household and the planet. The most common materials: plastic, glass, metal, paper. Before we even talk about how recycling systems operate, we need to get real about the materials themselves. Not all recyclables are created equally, and the little arrows on your packaging aren't telling you the full story. A plastic reality check. Why most aren't recycled. Only number 1 peat and number 2 HDPE are widely recycled. Others are rarely processed. Lower value plastics cost more to recycle than to landfill, and recycling processes have their own environmental and economic footprints. Plastics come in many forms, but in most municipal programs, only 2 types, number 1, peat like soda bottles, and number 2, HDPE like milk jugs, are reliably recycled. These are high value, high demand plastics that can be turned into new products without extreme processing costs. The rest, like number 3 through 7, are a recycling nightmare. Some contain mixed materials, dyes, or chemical additives that make them hard to process. Others are made in such low quality that it's not worth the energy and labor to sort and process them. Even if you do everything right by rinsing and binning, if the economics don't work, those plastics are headed for the landfill. And here's the kicker. Even for peat and HDPE, the process still has environmental footprint. Recycling plastics requires sorting, cleaning, melting, and reforming, all of which consume energy and release emissions. It's better than making virgin plastic, but it's far from carbon neutral. As a side point, fun fact, did you know you can recycle aluminum foil, but only if it's clean and balled up the size at least of a tennis ball? Glass. Infinite in theory, limited in reality. Glass is a PR dream story. It's endlessly recyclable without losing quality. In a perfect world, every bottle would become another bottle forever. In reality, much of the glass we toss never makes it back into production. Contamination is a huge culprit. A single piece of ceramic or heat-resistant glass can ruin an entire batch. Color mixing is another issue. Clear, green, brown glass all have different market values, so when they get mixed, it limits how they can be reused. Collection is also tricky. In single-stream recycling systems, glass often breaks during transport and sorting, embedded shards in paper and plastic, which can make all of it unrecyclable. And then there's the cost. While glass recycling saves raw materials like sand, soda ash, and limestone, the process is energy heavy. Melting glass takes intense heat, and because glass is heavy, transporting it to recycling facilities burns more fuel than lighter materials. In some regions, it's actually cheaper and more energy efficient to landfill glass than to recycle it. It's the brutal truth for a material with infinite potential. And this is getting a bit too bleak, I know, but don't worry, it is about to turn around. And another fun side point, did you know nail polish bottles are hazardous waste? They are tiny chemical bombs, not trash. Never put them in the trash. And always take the lid off. Metals and paper in recycling. First, metals. Metals like aluminum and steel can be recycled over and over without degrading. Your soda can today can be part of a bike frame in a few months and later an airplane part. Recycling aluminum saves up to 95% of energy compared to making it from raw ore. Steel recycling saves about 60 to 74% of energy. This energy saving means massive greenhouse reductions, less mining, less fuel burning, less environmental destruction. Now for paper. Paper is a great recycling candidate, but its fibers do shorten and weaken each time it's processed. On average, paper can only be recycled 5 to 7 times before the fibers become too short to bond to new paper, but that's okay, because after that the fibers get downcycled into products like cardboard, egg cartons, or insulation. Recycling paper saves trees, as we know, about 17 trees per ton, but it also reduces water and energy by roughly 30 to 50% compared to making new paper. Some of this sounds bleak, but knowing this can help advise your purchasing choices in stores. Like now you know to choose metal and paper over plastic and glass whenever possible. Another fun fact, pizza box hack. The greasy bottom, sure, that has to be garbage, but you can cut that out and recycle or compost all the clean parts. Sorting systems, single stream, dual stream, and the contamination killers. Once the materials leave your home, the sorting process determines whether they get a second life or go straight into the dump. The way your community sorts its recyclables makes a huge difference, and some streams are simply more efficient than others. Sorting systems, the good, the bad, and the messy. How your recyclables get sorted after they leave your bin can make or break the whole process. There are different systems out there, some convenient for you, some better for the planet, but convenience often comes at a cost. Single stream, one bin for all recyclables. Easy, but leads to higher contamination. Dual stream, separates paper and containers, reduces contamination, but does require more effort and infrastructure. And then the contamination killers. Food waste, plastic bags, and wrong items spoil whole batches. Single-stream recycling, where everything goes in the same bin, has exploded in popularity because it's easy for residents and reduces collection costs. But that ease brings headaches. When paper, plastic, glass, and metal all mix together, contamination skyrockets. Food-spoiled paper, greasy pizza boxes, and plastic bags gum up sorting machines. All these reduce the quality of the recycled materials and sometimes doom entire batches to the landfill. Dual stream systems require households to separate paper products from containers like bottles and cans. This extra step means cleaner materials and higher quality recyclables, but it demands better education, more bins, and sometimes more trucks. So the costs rise and participation dips. Contamination is the silent killer here. A single non-recyclable plastic bag can jam machinery and cause tons of clean recyclables to be landfilled. Educating the public on what goes where is as important as building the recycling facilities themselves. Another fun did you know? Bottle caps should go back in the bottle. A loose cap is too small to sort. Dual stream. Cleaner sorting, higher stakes. Dual stream recycling divides recyclables into two main categories: paper products in one bin and containers like glass, metal, and plastic in another. This separation dramatically reduces contamination because paper isn't getting soggy or tangled with greasy pizza boxes, and plastic and glass aren't smashed into cardboard. The result is higher quality recyclables that are more attractive to buyers and easier to process, which ultimately keeps more material out of the landfill. However, this system does ask a bit more from residents and municipalities. You need extra bins, clear labeling, public education, and a collection system that handles separate pickups. This means higher upfront cost and the risk that residents don't comply. Contamination problems simply return. Still, many communities swear by the dual stream as this sweet spot between efficiency and quality, especially where space and budget allow for these extra logistics. So it is a privilege. Contamination killers, the recycling saboteurs. Nothing kills recycling loads faster than contamination. Leftover pizza grease, clearly that's number one, and that forgotten yogurt cup can spoil a stack of paper and cardboard, making them unrecyclable. Food residue doesn't reduce material quality, it invites pests and vermin that add a whole new set of problems. Plastic bags, despite being made of recyclable plastic, are an arch nemesis of recycling facilities. They get tangled into the machinery, forcing the expensive shutdowns for untangling and repairs, and often cause whole batches of perfectly good recyclables to go to the landfill simply as a precaution. Then there are non-recyclable items like styrofoam, certain plastics, or random trash tossed in by mistake. Even a small percentage of these can contaminate entire shipments, turning what should be a circular economy win into a landfill fodder. Economics at play: cheaper to dump, market dependence, China's 2018 ban. If your recyclables are perfectly sorted and in great condition, the final destination to recycle them often comes down to money. If the economics don't work, all that sorting means nothing. The price tag behind recycling. It's no secret that in many places, landfilling is cheaper than recycling. The upfront cost for collecting, sorting, and processing recyclables can be high. And if the market for those materials dries up, as it happened after China's 2018 import ban, the whole system can stall. But here's the empowering part: economics isn't destiny. Consumer demand, smart policies, and technological innovation can change the game. Programs that focus on reducing contamination, investing in local recycling infrastructure, and creating markets for recycled materials make recycling more financially viable. Every bottle, can, and paper you carefully sort is a vote for a circular economy, a world where materials are resources, not waste. The more we choose to recycle right and push for better systems, the stronger the market gets. That means less landfill, less pollution, and a healthier planet for everyone. Fun side, did you know? plastic bags do jam the machines, but the stores often take them back. So drop them off there instead. Market dependence. When nobody buys, it becomes waste. Recycling doesn't just happen automatically after you toss something in the bin. It needs somebody to buy that material and turn it into a new product. When demand falls, recyclable materials pile up with nowhere to go, and sadly, many end up in the landfill or incinerators. That's why consumer choices matters big time. When we boycott brands and products with poor recyclability or questionable environmental records, we send a powerful message. Make stuff we can recycle or lose our business. This market pressure is a key tool for shifting industry practices towards circular design. But here's the catch. The stuff already out there isn't going to disappear. We still need smart, scalable ways to handle existing waste streams, whether that means developing new recycling technologies, repurposing materials creatively, or implementing policies that hold producers accountable. Market dependence highlights a need for a combined approach, savvy consumers and systemic innovation working hand in hand. Another fun did you know, tossing maybes into a bin causes contamination. So if you're ever in doubt, just leave it out. When the world changed. China's 2018 recycling import ban. This was a global wake-up call. In 2018, China restricted most imports of foreign recyclables, disrupting a decades-long system where much of the world's waste was shipped overseas for processing. This had a ripple effect everywhere. Communities worldwide suddenly faced overflowing storage, higher processing costs, and reduced recycling services. The hidden opportunity, though, was that this challenge sparked innovation. Local recycling plants, new sorting technology, and community-driven zero-waste movements began to grow. In 2018, the recycling world was admittedly turned upside down. For years, many countries, including Canada, the US, and Australia, relied on China to take a huge portion of our recyclable materials. It was like we outsourced not only the work, but the responsibility. Then finally, China was forced to say no. They introduced strict contamination rules, and simply with that, overnight, millions of tons of materials had nowhere to go. Recycling programs everywhere scrambled. Some had to cut back, some had to shut down entirely. Tells you how contaminated that stuff must have been, eh? Now, this could have been the end of the story, an absolute crisis. But instead, it became a wake-up call. It forced us to ask, why are we shipping our problems overseas, and why aren't we investing in our own solutions? Out of that disruption came innovation. Better sorting technologies, local processing plants, and grassroots zero-waste movements that are still growing today. And here's important perspective. China was absolutely not doing this to hurt anyone. They were protecting their environment, reducing contamination, and focusing on their own domestic waste. They had no choice. And in lots of areas, China's leading the way. In renewable energy, in green manufacturing, in infrastructure that moves millions without fossil fuels. The lesson here, when a big change hits, it's not about finding villains, it's about finding opportunities. And a fun did you know? Broken glass is actually not recyclable. It shatters, it cuts workers, it ruins batches. So if it breaks, maybe make it into art. What can you do about landfills? Your actions really do matter. You do not have to overhaul your entire life to make a difference. Start with organics. Composting is climate action. Keep poisons out of the pit. E-waste, chemicals, batteries, aerosols, they belong at the depots, not in landfills. Every piece of plastic avoided is one less forever object buried alive. And the best waste is waste we never create. Buying less and reusing stretches the system. And then finally, landfills aren't just personal issues, obviously. Support policies and spread awareness. Systemic change starts with voices.